Do you ever feel frustrated because you are trying incredibly hard to move forward and to improve yourself, but then you keep falling back again and again, just like this guy over here? If so, don't worry, you are absolutely not alone. I have struggled with that myself for years until I finally figured out how to overcome that self-sabotage. Hey there, my name is Michael, and in this video I'm going to give you 6 steps to overcome self-sabotage, and in the process you will develop discipline, even when you have zero discipline to speak of right now. So if you ever felt like you've tried so hard and you got so far, but in the end it didn't really matter, just like Linkin Park, you will have the answer after this video. So make sure you stay until the end, and let's dive right into the first thing here, which is that you need to be very careful about your words. Because what is so common when I browse Reddit or certain Facebook groups to help other people, it is that people say, I can never be disciplined. I can never get anything done. I always mess up. I'm such a loser. Those are some of the terms that people tell themselves. You might have found that you say the same things to yourself as well. But here's what I desperately need you to understand. It is that you follow your words. Meaning, when you say, I am not disciplined, you might think that you are describing your present day self. In reality, you are describing your future self. Because the longer you keep telling yourself that you're not disciplined, the longer you will never be able to change that about yourself. Because everything you attach to the words I am becomes part of your identity. Meaning, if you over and over keep telling yourself, I'm such a loser, your mind is saying, a loser. So that's our identity. And one of the most powerful psychological needs that we all have is the need to stay congruent to who we say that we are. So guess what happens when you say, I'm not disciplined? Guess what happens when you say, I can never get anything done? Guess what happens when you say, I'm a loser? In your mind, you ingrain those things in yourself. And now they become part of who you are, and it becomes very difficult to break that. So the first step, if you want to overcome self-sabotage, is to stop those words. Is that going to be difficult? Yeah, it is going to be difficult at first. Because you need to put your focus to your internal dialogue. Those conversations with yourself are happening all the time. But most of the time, we're not aware of them. So you need to continuously audit and catch yourself out whenever you're saying those negative things to yourself. And literally cut yourself off. Say to yourself, no, that's not who I am. I used to be some loser in the past, but I am getting better every single day. That's how you want to change from one way of talking to yourself to another way of talking to yourself. That is incredibly crucial. The second thing that I want you to know about when it comes to self-sabotage is that your mind creates certain patterns. That's why it's so difficult to make progress. Because you move forward a little bit, but as soon as you are not putting all of your conscious effort towards that improvement, your mind is going to fall back into automatic patterns that have been programmed into you for years. So if you always go and you smoke cigarettes, or you go and eat for every time you're stressed, for example, if you have been doing that for years, do you think it's logical that you will break that in a day or two? Of course not. It is so ingrained in you because the behaviors that you have, all of the bad habits, they are coping mechanisms. So maybe you do certain things when you're feeling bored, or when you're around certain bad influences, or when you feel incredibly stressed, or when you have a certain fear that you have inside of you. And your mind wants to do something to get rid of those emotions. That's oftentimes why we smoke. That's sometimes why we watch porn, or why we play video games, or watch Netflix for hours and hours, why we scroll on our phone continuously. Those are the things that are caused by those negative emotions. And you need to little by little break those things. First of all, you need to be aware of what your patterns are. So one thing that really helps is to get one of these things, a pen and a piece of paper, and write out what are the behaviors that I want to get rid of. And then more importantly, how do I feel just before I engage in those things? So if it's a porn addiction, for example, you might feel lonely at some point. And then you go to the app, then you go to the hub, and that's when it happens. And so you need to have a way, once you map it out, to then replace those things, which is the third step to stop avoiding this self-sabotage and to finally make your progress last. So before I dive in how to actually break a bad habit, let me tell you why I gave you the advice to write down how you are feeling before you engage in a bad habit. It is because of this. Every bad habit has a good intent. There is something your mind wants to get rid of in the present moment. It could be stress, it could be anxiety, it could be loneliness, boredom, but there is something positive that you are getting out of this. So to give you one example, with smoking, the positive intent is the following. Even though consciously you know that it's bad for you long term, in the moment it relieves stress and anxiety. There are evolutionary reasons for this. I'm not going to go too deep into it. But know that once you have something in your mouth, like you're smoking, or you're chewing, or you're eating, that relieves stress. So once you know where it's coming from, now you can look for alternatives. So if you are bored, for example, and you go and you scroll on your phone, have your phone out of the way, and instead maybe have a book or some online education, a course that you want to go through. That can still solve the issue of boredom with something that's good for you long term as well. So the key to replacing your bad habits in a way where they start becoming like permanent is to not try to eliminate bad things from your life, but rather to replace it with something that has the same effect. So, for example, chewing gum works great when you want to replace smoking. A book or a course or something that's educational can replace doom scrolling. Just going outside for a walk can create some feelings of loneliness or even boredom. Anything where you can say, before I was doing this thing, and now I'm gonna do this thing. That's gonna help you to become more consistent over time and develop better habits. However, we need to talk about the fourth thing, which is the science of progress. And the best analogy I can give you for this is running. If you pick up running today, and it's the first time you've ever run in your life, let's just assume that. How realistic is it for you that you're gonna run 10 miles in a row without ever pausing? Not very realistic, is it? You're probably gonna be out of breath after like 300 meters. That's what it's like with discipline as well. When you first try and do something that you've never done before, you will go incredibly slow. I've experienced this myself, where sometimes for a week, I could take action like, yeah, I'm a badass motherfucker. And then the second week, yeah, it took a deep dive down. But then over time, it went from maybe a week to 2 weeks of action to 3 weeks to 4 weeks to 5 weeks. And that's a process that took me, I would say, a couple of years while I was doing everything with trial and error. I didn't understand how my mind works. I didn't understand how to replace my bad habits instead of eliminating them. I didn't realize how to become more disciplined. And because I didn't know the things I'm teaching you in this video, that took me a long time. For you, you can probably do it a lot faster than years once you follow this process. So what I really want you to understand here is to not be discouraged once you fall back. Once you maybe go for 4 days and then you fall off for a few. And then you go for 10 days and you fall off for a few. And then you maybe go for a week and you fall off for another week. And then maybe you fall back a little bit more and you do it for 4 days straight. And then you don't do it for another 2 days. That is part of the journey. You're never going to go and see this kind of line upwards. Never. It's going to go like this, but hopefully it's going to go upwards to the right if you look at it like a graph. So it's always going to be this like slippery slope in a way. But once you start to train your discipline, which I'll get to in a moment, you will see great progress. And as a quick side note, before I give you a simple exercise to build your discipline up from zero, which I used myself, let me tell you, I just created a new free training on how to get more done in a week than most people do in a month. It's a completely revolutionizing way to think about productivity. It is absolutely free. Once you go to the link below this video and you click on it, just enter your name and email address and you will get that training for absolutely free. So for step number 5, let's talk about the exercise that I used when I had zero discipline to begin with. And in 3 simple stages, I built this up to the level where I can get myself to take action. Basically at will. The first stage of this is where you apply what I call the 10-second rule. So first of all, pick something that you can do within, you guessed it, 10 seconds. Something like a few push-ups or some other exercise or something that requires a little bit of effort, but that can easily be done. What you're going to do is you're going to take your phone, because it's probably glued to your hand anyway, and you're going to set multiple alarms throughout your day. And now every time when one of those alarms goes off, you go and you do that thing you said you weren't going to do. And what you're doing with this is you are proving, keyword is proving to yourself that you can take action when you say you're going to take action. Remember when I talked about that inner dialogue? The ones where you say, oh, I can never get myself to do anything? By changing the words you use and then backing them up with this exercise, you will start to change that belief about yourself. So what you're doing with this exercise is the following. You are training yourself that you can and you will take action whenever you say you're going to take action. So that's stage number 1. Stage number 2 then is the following. Now you pick a goal and you break it down until the smallest bit. So if you want to open a book and you read 50 pages, you make your goal to just open your book and get started reading. If you want to go for a 5-mile run, you make your goal to put on your clothes and set foot outside. If you want to go to the gym for an hour, you make your goal to set foot in the gym. That's it. If you have done that bare minimum, you are good to go. But once you decide what that minimum piece of action is, you go and you still set your alarms. Maybe you set fewer of them, but once that alarm goes off, you go and immediately do that thing. And by the way, for this step, you can plan them out. Like, okay, I'm going to be done eating at 7, so I'm going to set my alarm at 8:15. And then I'm going to exercise. Something like that. And then once that alarm goes off, you immediately go into action. And now you are proving that you can get yourself to take action and move forward at will. Because you now prove that you are in control over yourself, your actions, your thoughts, which is the only thing you have control over. And then the third stage of this is that you start doing it over and over again, even without the alarms. So for example, if you find yourself in a non-productive mood, what you can do is you can think about, what should I be doing right now? You think of it, you think of the first action you can take in order to get started on that project. So for example, if I want to start writing an article, my first step, if I'm laying in bed, for example, would be to get up, get to my computer and just turn it on. Then what you're going to do is you're going to just count backwards in your head. 3, 2, 1, go. And then as soon as you say go in your head, you get up and you do that thing that you said you were going to do. And then the more and the more you do these things, the more you keep reinforcing it, the easier it becomes to do it the next time, and the next time, and the next time. That's the science of progress. That's just like if you run every day for 2 weeks, you will be able to go a further distance without being out of breath after 2 weeks than you were at day 1. And if you continue for another month, you can go even further. And if you go 3 months more, you can run even further without being completely out of breath. The same thing happens when you follow this 3-step process to build more discipline. By the way, if you're liking this and you're watching this video still, go ahead, give it a quick thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Now, a 4th bonus step in this process of building discipline is the concept of don't miss twice. Because so many people have this all or nothing kind of mindset, where it's like, I am so disciplined right now. And people go hard for like a week and they are on fire. But then something happens when they miss one day and it's like, well, you know, I don't know. I can just I'll give up for today and then maybe tomorrow. But since they're in that mood where they're defeating themselves with their own thoughts, their own self-talk, one day of missed action becomes 2 days, becomes 3 days, becomes 2 weeks. And before you know it, you find that you made the progress until here. And then you fell back down. And then once you eventually get back into it, you grow. At some point you miss. And then you regress back. That's the pattern that so many people fall victim to. And here's the main difference between successful people and those who ultimately fail. It is that successful people are way quicker to get back in the saddle when they fall off. So this concept of don't miss twice. It means that if you fail today, you make 100% sure you hit it tomorrow. Drag yourself by the hair and pull yourself to your workstation if you have to. No matter how much your mind is going to be kicking and screaming at you. You make sure you don't miss that 2nd day in a row. Is it difficult? Hell fucking yeah, it is difficult. But that's why it's also rewarding. Because if everybody was able to just snap their fingers and do whatever they really wanted to do, then everybody would be at that level and it would lose a lot of the meaning. So be excited for the struggle. Be excited for the setbacks. Because those, once you're gonna look back at it 3 years from now, those are gonna be the most satisfying moments for you. But you gotta remember to train your discipline, just like you would train your other muscles at the gym. Just like you would train your stamina when you go for a run. Just like you would train your levels of focus by meditation and by forcing yourself into a singular vision. Just like that, you can also train your discipline. So always keep that in mind and keep on improving. Don't expect yourself to be perfect tomorrow, but expect yourself to be just a little bit better tomorrow. And once you can look back at your progress over time, you will start to feel prouder and prouder about yourself. Your inner dialogue is going to change to, you know what? I can actually do this. I'm a good person. I'm confident. I can actually pull this off. I am not a fucking loser. I got this. That's the level that you ultimately want to reach with this. Now, let's talk about the 6th and final part of this process. And that is also the most painful part. Because the truth is, if up until now you have been making progress and then falling back, making progress, falling back, making progress and then falling back, what has happened is that your level of success over here, the ones you keep falling back to, that's like a thermostat. Internally, there is a belief that you only deserve up until this level of success. So what happens when you make progress? Your mind's like, wait a minute, this is more than we deserve, and you fall back. It's also a good thing in a way, because if you fall like this, your mind's going to be like, what the hell are you doing? Your entire life is messed up right now, and you move back up until this point of what you believe you are worth. And so what you need to get back to is this feeling of, why do I actually feel like I deserve this level and not this level or not this level? And oftentimes this comes down to having to resolve some things that happened in your past, in your childhood, some beliefs about yourself where maybe you were bullied. That's something that happened to me, for example. Because I was bullied for years and years, I had no confidence, no self-esteem, and no productivity, no discipline, no willpower, no social skills, no anything at all. And I had to resolve a lot of the negativity where I felt unworthy. I couldn't get myself to do anything because of this reason that I felt like a complete loser. And because I felt like that, I didn't feel like I deserved this level of success, or even this level, or even this level. I felt like I was all the way below because of those bad, events that happened in my life. And so this is something that you can go through by a process of journaling, for example. By thinking about, why do I feel deserving of XYZ goal? Write that question down somewhere and notice what comes to mind. Maybe your mind's going to say, I feel worthy. But then there's also that little voice that says, well, no, you're not because of X, Y, and Z. Those little voices in your head, that's what you want to pay attention to, because those are some of the beliefs that you need to work on. This video is already getting too long to go into that process. But if you want to know more about how to actually build that confidence and that trust in yourself so that you do believe in yourself, so that you do feel worthy, I also have a free training on building confidence, which you can get when you click the link below this video as well. And you go to that page, enter your name and email address, and you will get that for, you guessed it, absolutely free.